These hikers set out for adventure and never returned. From mysterious disappearances in well-traveled parks to vanishing without a trace in the wilderness, their fates remain unknown. Each case is a chilling mystery that leaves families and investigators searching for answers. From eerie last sightings to abandoned campsites, the questions linger. Where did they go? This is 1 hour of hikers still missing in 2024. Where are they? It was May 25, 2020 in Hervey Bay, Queensland. Paul Brazier, a 37-year-old father of two, left Urangan Boat Harbor at 1:30 p.m. for a fishing trip. He was an experienced fisherman with all the necessary safety equipment, including life jackets and a radio distress beacon. Despite this, Paul never returned, leaving his family and community shocked. Paul's wife, Terry Brazier, made an emotional plea on Facebook, sharing their last photo and expressing her love for him. She wrote, "Please, Paulie, we need you. Love you forever and ever." The couple had been married since August of the previous year and had 2 young children. Terry and the family knew something was wrong when Paul didn't return home. On May 27th, after not hearing from him for 2 days, they reported him missing to the police. A central air and sea search was launched, involving multiple agencies and marine rescue vessels, covering the waters off Hervey Bay and Fraser Island. On May 28th, Paul's white 2002 Yalta, 5.4 meters long, half-cabin powerboat, was overturned between Fraser Island and the Wide Bay coastline. The sight of the upturned boat was grim, but there was still no sign of Paul. Hervey Bay Water Police Sergeant Paul Bacon stated that the investigation would now focus on examining the boat to understand what might have happened. He acknowledged that the family and friends were understandably upset and distressed, and hoped the investigation would provide the closure and answers they sought. Paul's disappearance left a deep void in the lives of those who knew him. His best friend, Matt Spargo, spoke about the pain and uncertainty they were all facing, acknowledging that they still had no real answers apart from the gut-wrenching fact that Paul was gone. Spargo set up a GoFundMe page to support Terry and the children financially, writing that Paul was the best friend he had ever had, a fantastic father, and someone who would do anything for his friends and family. The goal was to raise enough money to give Paul's family some financial breathing room to process this tragedy. Despite extensive search efforts, Paul's body was never found. The official search was called off on May 31st, leaving the family and friends with unanswered questions and a painful lack of closure. The area where Paul disappeared is popular among recreational fishermen and known for its abundant marine life, including mackerel, marlin, tuna, coral trout, snapper, trevally, and sharks. Paul had fished there many times before, always returning home safely. The community has rallied around Terry and her children, offering support and sharing heartfelt messages. Friends expressed their heartbreak for the family, sending love and strength. Others supported and reassured Terry that they were nearby if she needed anything, extending their thoughts and love to her and her children. During their grief, the family is left to piece together what might have happened. Paul was an experienced fisherman and his boat was in excellent condition. It had all the necessary safety gear, yet he didn't set off the emergency beacon. Was it a sudden accident? Or did something unexpected happen that caused the boat to capsize? Sergeant Bacon mentioned that they were transitioning into the investigative phase of the marine incident. He acknowledged the unfortunate news and emphasized that the primary goal in any search and rescue operation is to bring families and their loved ones back together. However, he noted that they had yet to achieve that. The investigation into Paul's disappearance continues, with police examining the boat and gathering any possible clues. But for now, the family and friends are left with haunting uncertainty and the hope that somehow they will get the answers they need. Floyd E. Roberts III was a dedicated educator at Middleton High School in Tampa Bay, Florida, where he had been imparting knowledge in business tech and web design since August 2014. With a reputation for his commitment to his students and a passion for teaching, Roberts had carved a niche for himself within the school district. Known for his adventurous spirit and love for the outdoors, he often sought solace and inspiration in nature. This penchant for adventure led him to join a 9-day backpacking excursion in the Grand Canyon on June 17, 2016, an expedition that would mark the beginning of an enduring mystery. The Shivwits Plateau, located in the remote western section of the Grand Canyon, is known for its breathtaking vistas and challenging terrain. Roberts, along with a group of fellow adventurers, set out to explore this rugged landscape. The Grand Canyon, with its awe-inspiring beauty and treacherous paths, demands respect and preparedness from those who traverse its trails. On that fateful day, the group faced extreme heat conditions, a common but dangerous element in the region during summer. Around 4:45 p.m., near an area known as Kelly Tank, Roberts became separated from his companions. This separation, seemingly innocuous at first, would later evolve into a dire situation. The last known direction in which he was seen heading was towards Trail Canyon and 214-Mile Canyon, possibly descending into 209-Mile Canyon towards the Colorado River. From that point, Roberts vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of questions and concerns. The immediate response from the National Park Service, NPS, was both swift and extensive. Recognizing the gravity of the situation and the potential dangers posed by the harsh environment, the NPS launched a comprehensive 6-day search and rescue operation. Ground crews meticulously combed through the area, helicopters scoured the landscape from above, and search dogs were deployed to sniff out any potential clues. Despite these exhaustive efforts, no sign of Roberts was found. The harsh realities of the Grand Canyon's environment cannot be overstated. The extreme heat, coupled with the challenging terrain and isolated location, presents significant risks to even the most experienced hikers. The possibility of Roberts encountering an accident or suffering a medical emergency such as heat exhaustion or heat stroke loomed large. The rugged nature of the canyon, with its labyrinthine paths and unpredictable conditions, only compounded the difficulty of locating a missing person. As the days turned into weeks, the search operation transitioned to a continuous but limited mode. This meant that while the intensive search efforts were scaled back, rangers and pilots in the area remained vigilant, ready to act on any new leads or clues that might emerge. Flyers bearing Roberts' description were posted at various locations in hopes that someone might have seen or heard something that could shed light on his whereabouts. Roberts was last seen wearing a red long-sleeve shirt, blue jeans, multicolored mesh Nike sneakers, a blue Lowa Alpine backpack, and white-rimmed sunglasses with orange lenses. This detailed description was crucial for anyone who might encounter him or his belongings in the vast expanse of the Grand Canyon. Tom Burnett, Roberts' neighbor for over 5 years, expressed profound sadness over his disappearance. Burnett shared that Roberts was no stranger to the Grand Canyon, having visited it before and harboring a deep affection for the great outdoors. His experience in hiking and familiarity with the area provided a glimmer of hope. Burnett remained optimistic, clinging to the hope that authorities would eventually find his friend. As the years passed, the hope for a resolution to Roberts' disappearance persisted, albeit with a sense of melancholy resignation. The NPS and Roberts' family continued to hold on to the possibility that new information or evidence might come to light. The enduring mystery of his disappearance left an indelible mark on those who knew him, and the search for answers remained a constant undercurrent in their lives. It was March 21, 1998. Amy Lynn Bradley, a 23-year-old recent graduate from Petersburg, Virginia, was on a Caribbean cruise with her family aboard Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas. Excited about her trip, Amy was eager to pick up her newly adopted bulldog Daisy and start her new job after moving into a new apartment. The ship left San Juan, Puerto Rico, heading to Aruba and then to Curaçao, Netherlands, Antilles. On the night of March 23rd, Amy went to the ship's disco with her brother Brad and other passengers and crew. They enjoyed dancing and socializing. Around 1 a.m., Brad saw Amy for the last time before they went their separate ways. At about 5:30 a.m. on March 24th, Amy's father, Ron Bradley, saw her asleep on their cabin's balcony. When he woke up again around 6 a.m., Amy was gone, but her shoes were left behind while her lighter and cigarettes were missing. Alarmed, Ron searched the ship but found no trace of Amy. Ron then woke his wife, Iva, and their son, Brad, and they contacted the ship's crew. Despite their urgent request to make an announcement and prevent anyone from leaving the ship, the gangway was lowered, and passengers disembarked in Curaçao. An announcement about Amy's disappearance was finally made at 7:50 a.m., but by then, many passengers had already left the ship. The crew searched common areas but didn't thoroughly check passenger and staff rooms, leaving the Bradley family devastated and frustrated. Over the next 5 days, Royal Caribbean staff and the Netherlands Antilles Coast Guard searched the ship and nearby waters, but no trace of Amy was found. Despite being a strong swimmer and trained lifeguard, it was unlikely she had fallen overboard and drowned close to shore. The search ended on March 29th, and Amy was declared dead 12 years later, though her body was never found. Amy Lynn Bradley's case remains a perplexing mystery. Numerous rumors and alleged sightings have surfaced over the years but remain unconfirmed. Some passengers claim to have seen a woman matching Amy's description heading to the top deck on the morning of March 24th, while others saw her with an unidentified ship employee. Amy's mother, Iva, recalled crew members showing unusual attention towards Amy during the cruise. One crew member even offered to take Amy to a restaurant in Aruba, which made her uncomfortable. Additionally, photos of Amy taken by the ship's photographer had vanished the night before she disappeared. In 1999, a U.S. Navy sailor reported seeing a woman in a Curacao brothel who claimed to be Amy Bradley, saying she was being held against her will. The sailor didn't report the sighting immediately due to fear of disciplinary action for being in a brothel. He came forward after retiring and seeing Amy's photo in a magazine. In 2005, a woman named Judy Maurer claimed to have seen Amy in a department store bathroom in Barbados. Amy was allegedly with 3 men who threatened her before dragging her away. Maurer said Amy told her she was from Virginia. One of the most compelling alleged sightings occurred in 2005 when the Bradleys received an email with photos of a lingerie-clad woman named Jazz, posted on a website advertising all-inclusive erotic vacations in the Caribbean. The woman looked strikingly like Amy. An independent forensics expert confirmed the photo was a perfect match for Amy. Despite these potential leads, Amy Lynn Bradley's whereabouts remain unknown. The FBI offers a reward of up to $25,000 for information leading to her recovery and the identification, arrest, and conviction of those responsible for her disappearance. Age-progressed photos of what Amy might look like today have been released. Amy is described as a white woman with short brown hair, green eyes, weighing 120 pounds, and standing 5 feet 6 inches tall. She has several distinctive tattoos: a Tasmanian devil spinning a basketball on her shoulder, the sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her right ankle, and a gecko on her navel. She also has a navel ring. As the years pass, the mystery of Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance continues to puzzle investigators and haunt her family. The case remains open, and the search for answers continues. It was October 24, 2019, in Albury, New South Wales. Ruth Ridley, a 58-year-old mother of 3 from Port Macquarie, was last seen at a local supermarket. She was headed to meet her estranged husband, Gary Ridley, for a camping trip at Neil's Reserve in Walwa, Victoria. This trip was meant to reunite them with their children and grandchildren, but Ruth never returned home. Ruth was known for her kind heart and dedication to her family. Despite marital issues, she always hoped for better days. On October 30, 2019, a concerned family member reported her missing after not hearing from her for several days. The search for Ruth began immediately, with both New South Wales and Victoria police involved. The first clue surfaced on October 26, 2019, when Ruth's dark blue Mitsubishi Pajero was seen towing a caravan towards Tumbarumba. The next day, the vehicle was spotted again without the caravan. Gary Ridley, Ruth's 61-year-old estranged husband, was seen buying fuel, the last confirmed sighting of him. On November 5, 2019, police found Ruth's car in Shelley, Victoria, about 40 kilometers from Neil's Reserve. Inside, they discovered Gary Ridley's body. The post-mortem showed he had taken his own life. Ruth, however, was missing. Detective Inspector Adrian Telfer and Detective Leading Senior Constable Andrew Leonard led the investigation, expressing deep concern for Ruth's welfare. They believed Ruth had been in a violent relationship with Gary for over 40 years. Despite not finding Ruth's body, police were convinced Gary was responsible for her disappearance and probable death. Following the discovery of Gary's body, extensive searches were conducted around Koryong and Walwa. Specialized cadaver dogs were brought in, but no trace of Ruth was found. Detective Leonard mentioned up to 4 other campsites at Neil's Reserve when Ruth and Gary were there, and appealed for those campers to come forward with any information. Ruth's disappearance devastated her family. Nathan Ridley, one of her sons, struggled to accept the idea that his father might have killed his mother. It tore him apart inside because he didn't want to believe his father was capable of such an act. Nathan found it hard to reconcile the loving father he once knew with the man who allegedly committed such a heinous crime. The Ridley family had been plagued by domestic violence for years. Ruth's close friend Marion Bremner shared that Ruth always feared Gary might kill her. Despite this fear, Ruth stayed with Gary, citing their marriage vows. Marion recalled Ruth as a sister and missed her dearly. Investigations revealed that Gary was a former Queensland policeman and a highly manipulative individual. Security camera footage showed Ruth and Gary together in the Albury supermarket on October 24th. Further footage showed their car towing a caravan towards Tumbarumba and later returning without it. A photo found on Ruth's phone showed Gary holding a fish he had caught at Neil's Bend Reserve on the Murray River around October 27th. Police believe this photo was a crucial clue to the events leading up to Ruth's disappearance. Despite the extensive investigation, the case remains unresolved. Police have filed a report for the coroner, indicating they believe Gary Ridley is responsible for Ruth's death. Detective Parker, who started the investigation, expressed hope of finding Ruth, stating that finding her, regardless of the circumstances, would provide closure and allow them to give her back to her family. Nathan Ridley, now coping with the loss of both parents, hopes his mother's story will be remembered and that cases of domestic violence will not be forgotten. He urges anyone in a similar situation to seek help and leave the abusive relationship. He emphasized that it also impacts human lives and the children involved in the relationship. The search for Ruth Ridley continues, and the police are still appealing for information from the public. They are particularly interested in speaking to anyone camping at Neil's Reserve on the weekend of October 26th and 27, 2019. Detective Leonard emphasized the importance of finding Ruth's body to provide closure for her family. Jim Shadid, a 79-year-old seasoned hiker, had always been a man of the outdoors. Born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, he spent much of his youth exploring the vast plains and hunting with his family. His love for nature was evident from a young age, and it only grew stronger as he got older. After a successful career as a dentist, Jim decided to retire early, selling his dental practice and moving to Durango, Colorado, to be closer to the mountains and the outdoor activities he loved so much. Durango, with its stunning scenery and access to numerous outdoor activities, was the perfect place for Jim and his wife Marilyn to settle down. The couple had been married for 56 years, and they shared a deep love for the outdoors. Together they raised their children with the same appreciation for nature that they had. Over the past 2 decades, Jim has become an integral part of the Durango community. He is known for his adventurous spirit and willingness to share his knowledge of the wilderness with others. Jim was familiar with hiking, backpacking, and hunting. He had been hunting since he was 12 years old, and his skills and knowledge of the wilderness were well respected. He was also an avid skier, frequently hitting the slopes at Purgatory Resort, and in his later years, he developed a passion for pickleball. On September 3, 2023, Jim set out for what was supposed to be a routine hike to scout elk in the Elbert Creek area near Line Canyon. Although this was an area he hiked in frequently, he had studied the trail maps meticulously before heading out. Jim planned to check the trail briefly and then return to his vehicle to grab lunch and his gear for a longer trek. He anticipated being gone for only about 90 minutes. However, after 45 minutes, he called Marilyn on the radio, saying he would return in 20 minutes. That was the last anyone heard from him. Jim was last seen wearing a tan safari hat and long khaki pants. When he didn't return as expected, concern quickly grew, and a large-scale search and rescue effort was initiated. The challenging terrain between the Little Elk Creek Trail and Elbert Creek Road near Line Canyon made the search difficult, but the community rallied together. For 8 days, volunteers, search and rescue teams, and countless agencies worked tirelessly to find him. Helicopters, drones, bloodhounds, horses, ATVs, and around 100 volunteers scoured the area, but there was no sign of Jim. By September 11th, the operation transitioned from search and rescue to search and recovery, as the likelihood of Jim's survival in the harsh mountain conditions dwindled. Despite the shift in focus, the efforts to find him continued. La Plata County Search and Rescue even developed a digital map that volunteers could use to check off areas where they had searched. This innovative approach allowed for a more organized and thorough search. The Shadid family was deeply moved by the community's outpouring of support and the dedication of the search and rescue teams. Although they held on to hope, they also began to accept the heartbreaking reality that Jim might never be found. His daughter Jamie expressed a sense of acceptance, believing that her father had found peace in the nature he loved so much. During hunting seasons, the Shadids encouraged people to be on the lookout for anyone who might appear lost or disoriented in the Elbert Creek area. They knew that Jim would want others to be safe, and that the search for him might help prevent future tragedies. In the final attempt to find any clues about Jim's whereabouts, a technical team was scheduled to navigate a remote area to follow up on scant leads. Despite these efforts, Jim Shadid's fate remained unknown. It is presumed that he succumbed to the severe mountain conditions after potentially getting disoriented and deviating from his intended path. Jim's disappearance was a significant loss for his family and the Durango community. He was not only a beloved husband, father, and friend, but also a nature enthusiast who cherished the Colorado wilderness he called home. His legacy lived on in the stories and memories shared by those who knew him, and his adventurous spirit continued to inspire others to explore the great outdoors with caution and respect. The search for Jim highlighted the risks associated with wilderness exploration, even for experienced hikers. It underscored the importance of preparation, communication, and the need for a buddy system when venturing into remote areas. Jim's meticulous planning and familiarity with the wilderness were not enough to prevent his disappearance. It was December 6, 2023, in Nangara, Western Australia. Dr. Natalie Casal, a 71-year-old retired general medical practitioner, told her family she would hike the Bibbulmun Track. This long-distance trail runs over 1,000 kilometers from Kalamunda, east of Perth, to Albany. Known for her love of the environment and a deep commitment to preserving wildlife, especially black cockatoos, Dr. Casal's announcement seemed consistent with her character. However, it would soon be revealed that her plans were far from typical. Dr. Casal was last seen alive at her home in Nangara, preparing for what she described as a hiking adventure with an organized group. Her son, Ramon Casal, reported her missing on March 7, 2024, after months of no contact. He shared his concerns with the police, noting that there had been no evidence that she ever visited the Bibbulmun Track or began the hike she claimed to be planning. Ramon informed Daily Mail Australia that his mother was last seen alive at her home in Nangara on December 6, 2023. Despite over a month of investigations, the police have provided no evidence to his family indicating that she visited the Bibbulmun Track or started the hike she claimed to be planning. Dr. Casal, who owned no car, had borrowed a lime green foldable bicycle from a family member. When police and family searched it, they found it missing from her home. She was fond of black cockatoo habitats in the Nangara pine plantation and near Yanchep and Pinjar, within bicycle distance of her house. Ramon urged locals near those areas to search the bush for possible answers, emphasizing the vast area that needed to be covered. Adding to the mystery, it was discovered only after the missing person investigation began that Dr. Casal had been hiding a serious health condition diagnosed in 2022. She had shared this diagnosis with only 3 people outside her family. This revelation shed light on her sudden retirement from medical practice that same year, a decision she never explained to her close relatives. The Bibbulmun Track investigation turned up nothing. Despite police focusing their search on the track and suggesting she had been sighted in a southwest town shopping for supplies, no solid evidence supported these claims. Ramon pointed out that nobody had come forward to state that they had driven his mother to the Bibbulmun Track, and she did not own a car. In a desperate plea, Ramon asked doctors who diagnosed or treated his mother to reach out to the police. He also highlighted the legal situation the family was in, namely that they were unable to take care of Dr. Casal's property. The situation left them distressed, seeking any leads that might help find her. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, police received information that Dr. Casal might have stopped in Northcliffe for supplies on the afternoon of March 14th. This would place her somewhere between Northcliffe and Walpole on her way to Albany. This sighting was the only potential clue, but it raised more questions than answered. Ramon described his mother as a private person who rarely shared her plans, making the disappearance even more puzzling. He pleaded with bushwalkers in the northern suburbs, Nangara Pines Plantation, and Nangara Moore River State Forest to be vigilant and report any signs of his mother. As the search continued, police searched bushland near her home and Lake Nangara but found nothing of note. They urged people between Northcliffe and Walpole to report any sightings. Adding to the complexity, Dr. Casal had a reputation for being eccentric. She was known for feeding wild cockatoos en masse on her property, a pastime that did not endear her to her neighbors. As a GP in the Pilbara, she was well known for rescuing baby kangaroos who had lost their parents to hunters. At one point, she had around 50 kangaroos roaming in and out of her home. Ramon expressed uncertainty about whether his mother was still alive. He acknowledged that she did not want to be found, as she had deactivated her phone canceled some utilities, sold personal items, and deactivated her Facebook account. The family's distress was palpable as they faced an unresolved case and an ongoing investigation. They contacted the WA Coroner's Court to escalate the investigation, hoping to find some resolution. It was January 11, 2008, in Oyster Pond, St. Martin. Lita Lynn Cordes, a 49-year-old woman from Orange County, California, had recently arrived on the Caribbean island with her husband, Frank Cordes. They were staying at their new vacation home, celebrating a fresh start and hoping to mend their strained marriage. Lita was known for her lively personality, making her sudden disappearance even more shocking. After hosting a housewarming party, Lita and Frank continued socializing with friends. Frank's mother had arrived from Germany, adding to the celebration. Around 9:30 p.m., heavily intoxicated from alcohol and prescription pills, Lita fell asleep in the back seat of their car. A neighbor was the last independent witness to see her there. Frank claimed that Lita woke up later and wanted to go gambling at the nearby Westin Resort Casino. He refused to give her the car keys due to her intoxication, so she allegedly left on foot with some cash. Frank said he waited a few minutes before driving after her to check on her, but when he didn't find her on the road, he assumed she had arrived safely at the casino. However, Lita never made it to the casino and never returned home. As soon as Lita was reported missing, her friends and family were deeply worried. They couldn't believe she would disappear without a trace. Frank's account was immediately met with skepticism. Lita's friends, Carrie Honstein and Elaine Karras, flew to St. Martin 48 hours after hearing the news and noticed inconsistencies in Frank's stories. They found it unlikely that Lita, who was afraid of driving in St. Martin, would have asked for the car keys or walked alone to the casino at night. Lita was described as a caring and fun-loving person with a wide circle of friends. However, recent years had been difficult for her. She had experienced emotional turmoil, including the loss of 2 brothers and her mother's declining health. These events led her to self-medicate with prescription drugs and alcohol. Her friends believed the lack of emotional support from Frank was worsening her drinking problem. On the night of her disappearance, Lita had a heated argument with Frank about money for the casino. Earlier that day, they had fought on Grand Case Beach, where Lita threatened to seek a divorce and claim half their wealth. She even called her friend Bobby Hargis at 10:30 p.m. to talk about her problems. Bobby was a younger man with whom Lita had an affair, adding further strain to her marriage with Frank. The couple's relationship was complicated and tense. Lita had suggested that Frank have a fling with her friend Elaine to balance the score after he found out about her affair with Bobby. This bizarre suggestion only added to their marital issues. Despite these tensions, they had hoped their new home in St. Martin would help repair their relationship. As the investigation into Lita's disappearance progressed, Frank's behavior raised suspicions. He appeared detached and unemotional, which was not typical of a worried spouse. Friends and investigators alike found his demeanor suspicious. Despite thorough searches and international cooperation, no physical evidence was found to indicate what happened to Lita. Surveillance cameras at the casino confirmed she never arrived there that night. In mid-October 2008, 9 months after Lita vanished, Frank was arrested and held in pretrial detention for over 3 months. However, due to a lack of concrete evidence, he was released. He remains a suspect in his wife's disappearance, but the case is still unsolved. Friends and family, including Lita's only son, Rory Bryant, have conducted multiple searches on the island with the help of authorities, cadaver dogs, and local volunteers. Despite their efforts, no trace of Lita has ever been found. Lita's disappearance profoundly impacted her friends and family. Her mother, Modena McClendon, who suffered from Alzheimer's disease, was moved to a state hospital 5 months after Lita went missing due to the lack of available care. Modena passed away alone at the California State Hospital on March 6, 2009, without ever knowing what happened to her daughter. The search for Lita continued for years, with her friends organizing extensive searches and even involving television crews from NBC's Dateline and CBS's 48 Hours. Despite multiple hints from cadaver dogs and thorough searches around Legalian Beach and other areas, no substantial evidence was found. Friends hoped to at least find her body and give her a proper burial, but their hopes were continually dashed. Elaine Karras and Carrie Honstein were particularly determined to find answers. They had known Lita for years and felt a deep responsibility to uncover the truth. They believed the prosecutor's office was right to be cautious about taking the case to court with only circumstantial evidence. They didn't want the police or prosecutors to risk the case and hoped that more evidence would eventually be found. Key points of suspicion included Frank's behavior and inconsistencies in his stories. For instance, he claimed that Lita had driven on St. Martin, which her friends denied. They also doubted that she would walk to the casino late at night, given her fear of walking alone in the dark. These discrepancies, along with his detached demeanor, led them to believe he had something to do with her disappearance. Richard Judd, a 72-year-old hiker from Berkeley, California, was an experienced and passionate explorer of the wilderness. On July 25, 2021, he set out for what he anticipated would be another invigorating hike through Yosemite National Park. A hiking partner accompanied him, and their planned route took them from Lower Merced Pass Lake to Red Peak Pass, a journey that promised breathtaking vistas and the serene beauty of Yosemite's rugged terrain. As they began their hike, the day was typical for late July in Yosemite. The morning air was crisp, the sky a brilliant blue, and the towering trees provided welcome shade along their path. Richard, standing 5 feet 11 inches tall and weighing 150 pounds, with brown eyes, short graying hair, and a beard, was a seasoned hiker who had trekked through numerous challenging landscapes before. On this particular day, he wore a blue shirt and gray pants and used white trekking poles to navigate the uneven ground. His navy blue day pack carried essential supplies for their journey. The route from Lower Merced Pass Lake, located at an elevation of approximately 8,800 feet, to Red Peak Pass was known for its stunning beauty and challenging terrain. Richard and his partner moved steadily along the trail, enjoying the natural splendor that surrounded them. However, as the day progressed, the weather began to shift. The daytime temperatures in Yosemite Valley soared to the upper 80s to about 100 degrees, with the intense heat reflecting off the rocky surfaces. Despite the sweltering conditions, Richard pressed on, his love for hiking and the outdoors driving him forward. As they neared the halfway point of their hike, the two hikers became separated. Whether it was a momentary lapse in communication, a divergence in their chosen paths, or an unexpected distraction, Richard found himself alone. The realization that he was separated from his partner wasn't immediately alarming. However, as hours passed and the oppressive heat of the day gave way to the cooler temperatures of the evening, concern began to set in. Richard's partner, unable to locate him, returned to their last known camp at Lower Merced Pass Lake and reported his disappearance to the authorities. The National Park Service was swiftly alerted, and an extensive search and rescue operation was launched. The search for Richard Judd was a massive undertaking. Park rangers, search and rescue teams, and numerous volunteers scoured the area where he was last seen. Helicopters and drones were deployed to cover the vast and rugged terrain from the air, while ground teams navigated the challenging landscape, calling out for Richard and searching for any signs of his presence. The daytime temperatures remained high, posing additional challenges for the search teams. At the same time, nighttime lows in the mid-60s provided some relief, but also underscored the urgency of finding Richard as quickly as possible. Despite the exhaustive efforts of the search teams, no trace of Richard was found in the days following his disappearance. The rough terrain and harsh weather conditions where Richard vanished suggested that he might have encountered an injury or medical crisis that hindered his return to camp or communication with authorities. Given his experience and resourcefulness, there was still optimism that he may have sought shelter and was awaiting rescue. Tips and potential sightings were diligently followed up, but each lead seemed to end in frustration. As days turned into weeks, the initial search transitioned from a full-scale operation to a more limited but ongoing effort. The National Park Service continued to urge the public to report any sightings or information that could aid in locating Richard. Flyers with his description were posted throughout the park, and hikers were advised to keep an eye out for any clues that might lead to his discovery. The mystery of Richard Judd's disappearance weighed heavily on those who knew him. Friends and family members were left in a painful limbo, torn between hope and despair. Richard had always been a pillar of strength and adventure in their lives, and the uncertainty of his fate was a burden they struggled to bear. His love for the outdoors had taken him on countless adventures, but now that same passion had seemingly led to an inexplicable disappearance. Over the next few months, sporadic search efforts continued as new areas were explored and previously searched regions were re-examined. Volunteers remained dedicated, and the Yosemite hiking community rallied around the effort to find Richard. His story became a sad reminder of the risks inherent in exploring the wilderness, no matter how experienced or prepared one might be. Despite the passage of time, the search for Richard Judd continued. Each year, as the anniversary of his disappearance approached, renewed efforts were made to find him. Search teams revisited the area, hoping that changes in the landscape or seasonal variations might reveal new clues. Yet as the second and third years passed without any breakthroughs, the hope of finding Richard began to wane. Richard's disappearance remained a mystery, a haunting reminder of the unpredictable and sometimes unforgiving nature of the wilderness. It was early May 2022 in Cancun, Mexico. A 32-year-old Australian woman, Tani Shanks, lived in Mexico for 9 years. She was known for her adventurous spirit and love for exploring new places. Tani was with her partner Jorge Luis Aguirre Estudillo and their 2-year-old daughter Adeline. This trip to the Yucatan Peninsula was supposed to be a family getaway, but soon it turned into a nightmare. Tani's last known communication was a text message to a friend, warning her to remember Jorge's name just in case. The strange and unsettling message indicated that authorities should look into Jorge Luis Aguirre Astudillo if anything happened to her. This cryptic message was the first sign that something was wrong. On May 2nd, Adeline was found abandoned outside a church in Cancun, barefoot and alone. The sight of a 2-year-old wandering the streets shocked the people and raised immediate concern. Surveillance footage revealed Jorge dropping Adeline at the church before disappearing. This act of abandoning his daughter intensified the urgency to locate Tani and figure out what had happened. The last known sighting of Tani was at a police checkpoint on the highway towards Yucatan. She was seen in a car with Jorge and Adeline. Hours later, the car turned around and headed back towards Cancun. The timeline of their movements became even more critical as authorities pieced together the events leading up to Adeline's finding alone. The car, a white Toyota Tundra, was later discovered burnt out, adding another layer of mystery to the case. Daniel Shanks, Tani's brother, flew to Mexico immediately. He was desperate for answers and took extreme measures to find his sister, including offering a reward of $70,000 for any information leading to her safe return. Despite his efforts, the data was sparse. The police in Mexico were treating both Tani and Jorge as missing persons, but the family feared the worst. Tani's family confirmed that her relationship with Jorge had been deteriorating. Text messages between Tani and her friends revealed that she was planning to return to Australia with Adeline. She had discovered Jorge's infidelity and was dealing with emotional abuse. In one message, she mentioned locking herself in Adeline's room to escape Jorge's anger. The situation was tense and Tani was scared. After Adeline was found, she was brought back to Australia to live with her grandmother and aunt in Brisbane. The family hoped that Adeline might hold clues to what happened that night. They took her to specialists to try and retrieve information through drawing and other techniques, but it was challenging. Adeline was too young to articulate what she had witnessed. Back in Mexico, the search for Tani continued. Authorities conducted a thorough search of a jungle area near Cancun, based on new evidence that suggested the couple might have been taken there and killed. Cadaver dogs were brought in and several hectares of land were combed through, but no trace of Tani or Jorge was found. The family was left grappling with the unknown. Daniel continued to push for answers, engaging a private investigator to keep the investigation alive. The lack of information and the slow pace of the investigation could have been more frustrating. Daniel expressed frustration, stating they had been given no information and emphasizing that they would stay in the situation. The mystery surrounding Tani's disappearance only deepened with time. Theories began to emerge. One theory suggested that there was a domestic violence incident, and Jorge was on the run. Another theory speculated that Jorge was involved with criminal activity linked to Mexico's notorious drug cartels, and that their disappearance was payback. Tani's family remained hopeful but realistic. They knew that the chances of finding her alive were slim, but they clung to the hope that someone, somewhere, had seen something that could unravel the mystery. The uncertainty was unbearable, and they needed closure. As the months passed, the case of Tani Shanks became more and more perplexing. Despite the reward and the intense media coverage, no solid leads emerged. The burned car, the abandoned child, and the missing parents formed a grim puzzle that no one seemed able to solve. It was August 9, 2009, in Chicago, Illinois. David Gimmelfarb, a 28-year-old PhD student from the Adler School of Professional Psychology, eagerly awaited his vacation. He flew out of O'Hare Airport heading for Costa Rica. David, an experienced traveler and hiker, planned to explore the Rincón de la Vieja National Park and stayed at the Hotel Chachipilin in Liberia, Guanacaste Province. On August 10th, David emailed and spoke to his parents, mentioning his visit to the national park and promising daily calls. The next day, when his parents didn't hear from him, They grew worried. On August the 11th, they contacted the hotel. The following day, the hotel staff informed them that David's rented white Hyundai Tucson was found locked in the park's parking lot. The date and time stamp for admission to the park was August 10th. The park, spanning 35,000 acres of volcanic jungle terrain, made the search for David difficult. Despite an extensive search involving local officials, volunteers, the Red Cross, and 2 U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopters, no trace of David was found. His parents, Roma and Luda Gimmelfarb, traveled to Costa Rica on August 13th to assist with the investigation. David, known to be an experienced hiker and traveler, had previously gone skiing in Colorado and traveled alone to Israel. At the time of his disappearance, he lived in the Buena Park neighborhood of Chicago. The Highland Park, Illinois, police investigated his case as his parents lived there. The Charlie Project also profiled his case due to his American citizenship. David's cell phone and passport were found in his hotel room, but his orange, gray, and black North Face backpack was missing. It might have contained a water bottle, power bars, a camera, and a travel book on Costa Rica. He also had the keys to his apartment in Chicago, his rental car keys, his wallet, and a copy of his passport with him. Some witnesses reported seeing David at the hotel bar later that afternoon, while others said he left the hotel in his car and was not seen again. Several sightings of David were reported in Costa Rica. The most recent, in mid-February 2010, involved a man fitting David's description who walked into a Coast Guard station. The man, appearing disheveled with an overgrown beard and long hair, seemed dazed and confused. By the time law enforcement contacted David's parents, he had left. This sighting is considered the most credible. His family believes he is alive but possibly suffering from illness or amnesia. David's parents have been relentless in their search. They have spent a significant portion of their retirement fund trying to find him. Over the years, they faced challenges, including being cheated and extorted. After offering a $100,000 reward for information about David's disappearance, they received menacing calls from someone claiming David had been kidnapped. The caller even sent a dark photo of a man holding a current edition of a Costa Rican newspaper. Investigators later traced the call to Costa Rica's La Reforma prison. Roma and Luda Gimmelfarb have made annual trips to Costa Rica since David's disappearance, except for 1 year when Roma was recovering from surgery. They meet with the U.S. Embassy, Costa Rican authorities, and people with knowledge of the case. They hope to establish a foundation to help U.S. families searching for loved ones who have disappeared in Costa Rica and elsewhere. Their search has been particularly difficult because they don't speak Spanish and had never been to Costa Rica before David's disappearance. In their search for answers, David's parents have hired a private investigator. The investigator found no activity on David's credit cards after he went missing. The Costa Rican Judicial Investigation Organization handled the case but closed it in November 2009 as there was no evidence of foul play or a crime. One glimmer of hope came when a psychic contacted the U.S. Embassy, claiming to know where David's remains were. The psychic took U.S. Embassy staff to a river in Guanacaste, where they searched but found nothing. Another hopeful moment came when David's parents received a tip suggesting David might have received treatment at the National Psychiatric Hospital in Pavas. However, an OIJ representative found no one matching David's description at the facility. David's disappearance has left his family in perpetual uncertainty. They believe someone knows what happened to their son. They continue to offer a $100,000 reward for information leading to David's discovery and pledge to repeat their annual trip to Costa Rica until they are too old to travel. Barry J. Tragan, a 68-year-old resident of Columbia Falls, Montana, was a man deeply connected to the natural world. Living in the shadow of Glacier National Park, he spent countless hours exploring its rugged beauty, finding solace and adventure in its vast wilderness. On July 22, 2020, Tragan set out for another hike, a solo journey that he had undertaken many times before. His destination was the Kintla Lake trailhead in the park's remote northwest corner, a spot known for its serene beauty and challenging terrain. Tragan's vehicle was discovered parked at the trailhead, a familiar sight for park rangers and fellow hikers who knew him by his regular visits. He was a seasoned hiker, well prepared for the challenges that Glacier National Park presented. However, when he failed to return by July 25th, concern proliferated. The National Park Service was notified, and a search and rescue operation was immediately initiated. The initial search efforts were extensive and well coordinated. Ground crews, helicopters, and search dogs were deployed to comb the harsh terrain surrounding Kintla Lake. The area, known for its dense forests, steep slopes, and unpredictable weather, posed significant challenges for the search teams. Despite their best efforts, there was no sign of Tragan. His disappearance seemed to baffle even the most experienced search and rescue personnel. Days turned into weeks, and on August 4th, a small glimmer of hope emerged. A pair of sunglasses was found in Kintla Creek in the North Fork area of the park. Given their location and the circumstances of Traegen's disappearance, the sunglasses were believed to belong to Traegen. This discovery prompted a renewed focus on the area around Kintla Creek. Canine search units were brought in, and the dogs showed interest at the outlet of Kintla Lake. Despite this promising lead, no further signs of Traegen were found. The search efforts intensified. The park staff, in cooperation with Flathead County Search and Rescue, continued to comb the area. Advanced search methods were employed, including the use of a remotely operated underwater vehicle to explore the depths of Kintla Lake. This technology allowed search teams to access areas that were otherwise unreachable. But despite these extensive efforts, no additional clues to Traegen's whereabouts emerged. As the days wore on, the reality of the situation began to sink in. On August 10, 2020, the National Park Service made the difficult decision to scale back the search operation. The absence of new leads and the challenging conditions of the search area necessitated a change in approach. The investigation into Traegen's disappearance remained open, but moved into a limited, continuous mode. Rangers continued to conduct periodic checks of the area, and any potential new information was pursued diligently. The remote setting of Kintla Lake and Traegen's age raised several possibilities regarding his disappearance. It was presumed that he may have encountered an accident or a medical emergency while hiking alone. The challenging topography and unpredictable weather conditions in Glacier National Park create formidable survival challenges, even for the most experienced hikers. Despite scaling back active search efforts, hope for finding Traegen persisted. His family, friends, and the National Park Service remained optimistic, believing that fresh evidence or information might eventually come to light and unravel the mystery of his disappearance. However, when that breakthrough will occur remains to be determined. It was November 1982 in Hewenden, a small North Queensland, Australia town. Tony Jones, a 20-year-old from Western Australia, was on a hitchhiking adventure across the country with his brother Tim. He constantly contacted his family, making regular calls and updating them on his whereabouts. But one day the calls stopped and Tony vanished without a trace. Tony and Tim arrived in Townsville in October 1982 with plans to hitchhike separately to Mount Isa. Tony's last known location was the Grand Hotel in Hewenden. On November 3, 1982, he made a reverse charge call to his mother from a phone booth on the outskirts of Townsville, informing her of his plan to head towards Mount Isa. That was the last time anyone heard from him. The disappearance of Tony Jones is one of Queensland's most enduring mysteries. The case has baffled investigators and tormented Tony's family for over 4 decades. Despite numerous investigations, inquests, and appeals for information, Tony's fate remains unknown. In the early days of the investigation, police received a letter from an anonymous sender known only as Lochiel. The letter, postmarked in Cairns, suggested that Tony's body was buried near the Fullerton riverbed, close to the Flinders Highway. Despite extensive searches of the area, no remains were found. In 2002, an inquest ruled that Tony had died at the hands of person or persons unknown. However, no suspects were identified, and his remains were never located. Over the years, the reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for Tony's suspected murder has been increased several times, now standing at $500,000. Police have also offered indemnity from prosecution for any accomplice who provides crucial information. In November 2022, police uncovered new evidence pointing to an altercation at the Grand Hotel on the night Tony was last seen. Detective Sergeant Brendan Stevenson from the Townsville Criminal Investigation Branch believes that Tony was murdered, supporting this finding. The Grand Hotel, Tony's last known location, burned down in 2018, complicating the investigation further. Tony's family has been relentless in their pursuit of answers, tirelessly lobbying for progress in the investigation. Their efforts culminated in establishing Australia's Missing Persons Week in 1988. Tony's older brother, Mark Jones, expressed the family's ongoing frustration with the authorities' lack of communication, stating that they continue to beg the coroner and the police to engage with them regarding the developments in the case. In recent years, new leads have emerged, keeping the investigation alive. 3 women came forward with information about a man and his accomplice who allegedly confessed to a murder that could have been Tony. These shocking conversations have given the family hope and frustration, as they feel the police have been slow to act on these leads. Theories about Tony's fate range from a possible encounter with serial killer Ivan Milat to a violent altercation with local thugs, or even succumbing to the harsh outback conditions. The Jones family has spent years retracing Tony's route and lobbying for continued investigations. They believe some key witnesses have not been interviewed, and leads that need to be followed up. One such lead involves an Italian hitchhiker in Hughenden around Tony's disappearance. This man's presence in the town could have mistakenly led some witnesses to believe Tony was still alive and in the area. Despite police efforts, the Italian hitchhiker had not been interviewed until recently, when the ABC managed to locate him living on an island off the coast of Italy. He confirmed his visit to Hughenden in November 1982, but knew nothing about Tony's case. The Jones family has also pushed for a ground-penetrating radar search of the Hughenden slaughter yard, where they believe Tony's body might be buried. It has not yet been conducted, despite their willingness to fund the search. As the years pass, the family's determination to find answers remains unwavering. They continue to appeal to anyone with information, no matter how small, to come forward. The recent increase in the reward and the police's renewed focus on the case have provided some hope, but the lack of closure weighs heavily on them. It was August 2nd, 2011, in Aruba, known for its beaches and clear waters. Robin Gardner, a 35-year-old from Maryland, was on vacation with Gary Giordano, a 50-year-old businessman she met online. They had known each other for about a year and decided to take this trip together. However, this vacation took a dark turn, leaving Robin's family and friends in shock. Robin lived with her boyfriend Richard Forrester in Maryland. She told him she was going to Orlando with her parents, but she was actually in Aruba with Gary. Their relationship was a mess, and Robin wanted to clear her head. She had recently lost her job as a patient coordinator at a dental office and thought a trip might help her feel better. On the day she disappeared, Robin and Gary were seen leaving the Rum Reef Bar and Grill at Baby Beach around 4 p.m. She seemed woozy and barely touched her salad. Less than 2 hours later, Gary returned to the restaurant, shirtless and with his toupee still in place, reporting that Robin had gone missing while they were snorkeling. Gary claimed a strong current swept Robin out to sea, and he lost sight of her. He went to the restaurant for help, but didn't re-enter the water to search for her, raising questions. Authorities quickly detained Gary, finding inconsistencies in his story. He had a scratch on his neck and was sweating profusely. Despite extensive searches by over 60 officials, FBI agents, Aruba riot cops, and volunteers, no trace of Robin was found. Gary's behavior raised further suspicions. Just before the trip, he had taken out a $1.5 million accidental death insurance policy on Robin, naming himself as the beneficiary. Friends said that Gary and Robin met on a swingers website, and Gary had been interested in taking her on trips before, but she'd always declined. After losing her job, she accepted his offer for a free trip to Aruba. During the investigation, surveillance footage showed the couple at the restaurant around the time Robin vanished. Witnesses said they appeared to be in a romantic relationship, and Robin referred to Gary as her husband to the server. Authorities also discovered graphic photographs on Gary's digital camera, described as beyond obscene. It was unclear when these photos were taken or if Robin was aware of them. Gary was arrested on August 5th, 3 days after reporting Robin missing, as he attempted to leave the country. He was detained for nearly 4 months on suspicion of murder, manslaughter, kidnapping, and fraud. However, due to insufficient evidence, he was never charged and was eventually released. Gary returned to the United States, facing public scrutiny and suspicion. In the years following Robin's disappearance, Gary continued to claim his innocence. He wrote a self-published book detailing his experiences and the media attention he received, hoping to clear his name. He appeared on television shows like Dr. Phil, insisting that Robin had drowned in a tragic accident. He also considered suing the Aruban government for detaining him without justifiable cause. Robin's family, particularly her sister, Danielle Colson Unglesby, remained skeptical of Gary's story. Danielle described her sister as a loving and wonderful person and believed something sinister had happened to her. She never believed Gary's account and felt that the insurance policy was a clear motive for foul play. Robin's boyfriend, Richard Forrester, also expressed doubts about Gary's story. He noted that Robin was an excellent swimmer and would never have gone snorkeling in deep waters because she wouldn't want to mess up her hair. He also suspected that Robin's disappearance could be related to human trafficking, given the circumstances and Gary's suspicious behavior. The Rocky Mountains, known for their breathtaking landscapes and rugged terrain, attract countless adventurers each year. Hikers flock to the trails to experience the beauty and serenity of Colorado's wilderness. However, the mountain's allure comes with inherent risks, and not all who venture into these wilds return. One of the most enduring mysteries of the Rockies is the disappearance of James Pruitt, a 70-year-old man from Tennessee. James Pruitt, a seasoned hiker with a passion for photography, arrived at Rocky Mountain National Park on February 28, 2019. He was an experienced outdoorsman, familiar with the challenges and beauty of the wilderness. That day, he set off for what he intended to be a day hike. He parked his car in the Glacier Gorge parking lot, grabbed his Nikon Coolpix P900 camera and a reddish-orange beanie, and began his trek around 10 a.m. The weather was typical for late winter, with cold temperatures and the ever-present possibility of snow. For 3 days, Pruitt remained silent, causing his family's concern to grow. On March 2nd, rangers found his vehicle still parked at the Glacier Gorge trailhead, indicating he had yet to return as planned. When they contacted his family, their worst fears were confirmed. Pruitt had set out for a day hike and had not been seen or heard from since. The National Park Service swiftly initiated an extensive search and rescue operation. By then, over 2 feet of snow had fallen in the Glacier Gorge area, complicating the search efforts. The fresh snow had likely covered any tracks or clues that could lead to Pruitt's whereabouts. Time was of the essence, but the severe weather and treacherous conditions made the search increasingly tricky. The operation mobilized ground crews, helicopters, and search dogs, all meticulously scouring the rugged terrain around Glacier Gorge. The search teams faced significant challenges, from navigating deep snow and icy paths to battling the biting cold. Despite their exhaustive efforts, no sign of James Pruitt was uncovered. The vast, harsh landscape seemed to swallow any trace of him, leaving behind only questions and heartache for his family. As days turned into weeks, the National Park Service was forced to adjust the search strategy. The active search was scaled back to a continuous limited mode, meaning rangers would conduct periodic checks of the area and follow up on any potential new leads. The investigation into Pruitt's disappearance remained open, but the resources and intensity of the initial search could no longer be sustained indefinitely. The mystery of James Pruitt's disappearance weighed heavily on his family and the search teams. Theories and speculations arose, but without concrete evidence, they remained just that, speculations. Given Pruitt's age and the challenging conditions in Glacier Gorge, it was presumed that he may have encountered an accident or a medical emergency while hiking alone. The demanding landscape and unpredictable climate in Rocky Mountain National Park create formidable survival challenges, even for seasoned hikers like Pruitt. As the years passed, the active search operations were halted, but the hope of finding James Pruitt never entirely disappeared. Both his family and the National Park Service continued to hold on to the possibility that new evidence or information might come to light. It was July 6, 2016, in Hallstatt, Austria. Sister Eileen Christie, a 72-year-old nun from the Sisters of St. Joseph of Brentwood, New York, arrived at Haus Jodler, a charming hostel in the village. Eileen was traveling alone through Austria, Croatia, and northern Italy. For 30 summers, she enjoyed the freedom to explore on her own. Her last email to her nephew, William Freda, came on July 6th, stating she had arrived safely at Haus Jodler. When 3 days passed without any word from her, William grew concerned. According to her itinerary, she was supposed to stay in Hallstatt until July 9th and then head to Innsbruck. On July 11th, when William called the hostel in Innsbruck, they informed him she never checked in. Alarmed, he contacted Haus Jodler, where the innkeeper revealed that Eileen hadn't been seen since the day she arrived. Eileen's disappearance shocked her community back in New York. The Sisters of St. Joseph held a prayer service for her at St. Anthony of Padua Church in East Northport, attended by over 200 people. Bishop William Murphy of Rockport, Long Island, reached out to Austrian Nuncio Archbishop Peter Stephan Zurbriggen to expedite the search. Despite these efforts, hope for Eileen's safe return dwindled. In Austria, the search for Sister Eileen was extensive. Local police, special forces, and K-9 units searched around Lake Hallstatt, a popular site for swimming and hiking. Divers from Austria's Special Forces Unit, Einsatzkommando Cobra, used submersible cameras to search the lake. Search dogs picked up her scent near the lake, suggesting she might have gone swimming. However, none of her personal belongings, except for her bathing suit, were missing from her room, leading authorities to consider the possibility of drowning. Her nephew, William Frieda, was frustrated with the response from both Austrian and American authorities. He felt the U.S. Embassy in Vienna and the local police were not doing enough. The American embassy cited a hands-off policy regarding local investigations, and the local police refused to post the missing person flyer William had prepared. The lack of information and investigative direction was troubling. It was out of character for Eileen not to communicate with her loved ones. William speculated she might have had a hiking accident or encountered foul play. The area's rugged terrain with deep lakes, high mountains, and dense forests made the search difficult and uncertain. The family's concerns grew as days turned into weeks without any sign of Eileen. They offered a €15,000 reward for information leading to her safe return, hoping someone might come forward. Her photo circulated in local media, and the police continued their search, but no substantial leads emerged. As the search continued, authorities focused on Lake Hallstatt. Detective Gerhard Weichselbaum, the case's lead investigator, explained that the region's challenging terrain made the search difficult. The lake's depth, up to 125 meters, required specialized equipment and divers to investigate. Despite these efforts, no conclusive evidence was found. Throughout this ordeal, the Sisters of St. Joseph, Eileen's family and friends held on to the belief she might still be alive. They hoped she was hiking somewhere, enjoying the natural beauty she loved. But as the days turned into weeks, the reality of the situation began to sink in. The U.S. Department of State remained involved, emphasizing the importance of protecting U.S. citizens abroad. They assured the family they were working closely with local authorities, although privacy considerations limited the information they could share publicly.